How to load data from different sources. So let's try to understand some of the methods here that we can use to load the data from different sources. So one of the important file format what we have here is CSV, right? Comma separated values. So how do I load a CSV file here? We all know what is CSV file and how it looks like, right? So now let's try to work on that. So I imported pandas and let's look into this. So pandas pd dot, if I want to load a CSV file, I'm going to say read underscore CSV, read underscore CSV in the bracket. So your CSV file name. So here I have a matches dot. It should end with a CSV only. If you have a CSV, it should end with a CSV. So this file you will be able to see in the same link, right? So matches.csv. So all the data in the CSV file will be loaded into one of the variable IPL. So let's import it. Then I'm going to say, yes, data has been loaded in the IPL. So this is basically IPL match related, the old data. So now I wanted to see the data inside this particular file, which we already loaded. So now I'm going to say IPL dot head. What does this head? Let me remove this too first. Now I will run this. This is our data set now. So this is all basically IPL related data, which happened before and recently also they concluded that. So yeah, it doesn't have the recent data, but yeah, it is the old data. So here I said, because I don't know what data we have in the file and how do I check it? So a simple way to check is dot head method, dot head. So here I'm not giving any number here inside this parenthesis. By default, it will show you 5 rows. 5 rows, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? Total 5 rows. So what total 5 rows? Which rows are they? Are they middle, center, or what exactly? Last. So this is head means the top 5 rows. The top 5 rows. And if you want to see the bottom 5 rows, yes, you have to mention tail. Tail. Head, tail. That's all. These are the bottom 5 records. If you want to just only top 2 rows or bottom 2 rows, just you can mention head or tail accordingly and mention 2. You will see only 2 rows. Right? This is our data set. So it doesn't matter what data inside. So we are not worrying about that at this moment. Here we are trying to understand how to import or load the CSV file. All right. So that is a head method, a tail method. Suppose say that you have your file in a separate folder. So this matches is basically I have that file inside my current directory. You can see here matches.csv. That's why I have not given any path here. Right? Wherever your Jupyter notebook, if your file is in the same folder, you don't need to write anything. Just mention the file name. But your file name exists in different folder. In different folder. So that time you can copy the path. Copy that path and let me show you that as well, how to copy. For sure, everyone know, but here little tricky part. Okay, give me a second. I will open this first. So this is the folder, right? This is the folder and Titanic underscore train, right? So Titanic underscore train, Titanic. This guy Titanic. Okay, sorry, Titanic underscore train. So just click on that. Here you will see this copy path. Depending upon your Windows, you will see. So copy path, just click on that. You have to select this and click on that, and you can just paste it here, right? If you paste here, what happens? You will get this entire link here, all right? So then if it opens directly, that is well and good. If it doesn't open, you have to just write R here. R. So for me, it is not working directly. I'm just using this R. For you, it might work because I have installed so many libraries. Some version mismatches and all are there. So for some reason, it is not working for me, but for sure, it will work just for you just by giving this path. So whichever the link, whichever the copy you are going to do, that path, so just copy and paste, but it should be inside the quotes. Make sure that it is inside the quotes, right? So then read underscore CSV as usual, then I'm going to run this. So yes, I'm importing this CSV file from different folder. This is our one of the way to import files from different folder. Now we discussed about head, tail. What if I want some random numbers, random records from the data set? I don't want to see either top records or the bottom records. I want to see random records. Yes, you can do that. So yes, use your data set, whichever the data set you are creating, right? Data dot sample, data dot sample, or data set or data frame dot sample. How many records you want to see? Number of records, n equal to 13 or 10, 5, right? So let's keep it around 7 and run it. And you can see the random records will be selected. 7 records, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all, if you look into these indexes, right, all are different. They are not in serial, right? 0, 1, 2, 3 or last 5 records. They are all random. First time 466, next time 338, then it is 725, right? Every time it is going to pick random numbers. So again, if I execute this, you will get a different 7 records. So that also you can do. Using what? Using dot sample method. And this is number of records you want to display. Just want to see how it looks like, how the data set looks like, what kind of a data we have. Just a glimpse, right? And some will think that how do we print the entire data set? You don't need to mention dot data, sorry, dot head or anything. If I want to print entire data set, it is not possible. Why it is not possible? Because of the window size and things like that. So what it will do, it will show you top 5 rows and bottom 5 rows. And in between you see this dot dot, right? It means that there are some records hiding. And think practically what you will do by looking into the lakhs of records. What you are going to achieve? Nothing, right? You will not read all those records. If I have millions of records, even though assume that it is going to print millions of records, will you be able to read all of them if you have hundreds of columns? Practically, it is not possible. Even though if you read it, how many data you are going to keep in your mind? Nothing. Yes, we have a beautiful methods, functions to fetch the required data, which is required for our analysis or things like that. We will see that one. Right? Fine. Now let's check the type of data here. It is a data frame. Type of data is data frame because this is a data frame. And shape, we have discussed this. Shape is not something new for us. Shape is basically going to give you number of rows, comma number of columns. Columns of what? The data frame. So yes, our data frame dot shape, it is going to give us the number of rows and columns. These are the number of rows present in the data frame and number of columns. If you count it, you will see number of columns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, and 891 rows. So how do I make sure that? Yes, you can see here, we used a tail method here. We used a tail method. Last 5 rows, you can see 890, right? So because it starts from 0, obviously it is 891 records. So that is basically what? Dot shape. Okay, now let's look into the exporting data. How to export the data, right? See, we have already imported data. Suppose say this is our data set, right? So then after doing some operation, say that you see here, right? Some NANs are there, things like that. Suppose say you have manipulated this and you have basically cleared, or I would say cleaned some of the unnecessary data, and your data frame looks good now, and you wanted to send it to your colleague or someone else or a client, anyone. So how can you send that? Because this file is in your Jupyter notebook, right? So how can you store it? How can you store back? Send the updated one. So what you can do, concept is very simple. So you can see here, this is your data frame, right? Dot to underscore CSV, to underscore CSV. So you can give new name for this. Any name you want to give, you can give, but it should end with a dot CSV. It should end with a dot CSV. So where it is going to store? It will store in the same folder where your Jupyter notebook lies. What if I want to store in a different folder? The concept is again same. Where you want to store the file, just copy the folder name, whichever the folder you want, where you want to store, and just give that folder name, and this is the file name. Whichever the file name you want to give, you can give. So index equal to false. What is this index equal to false? Here you can see, you need to understand whenever we convert that into data frame, right? We all know that it is going to create indexes. But when you are storing in the CSV file, do you really need these index names? We don't need it. So I will say index equal to false. I don't want index numbers to be stored in the file. Header equal to true. Header, top row, right? So this is header. So do you want to store these names, column names? So we call it as a header. You want to store this? If you want to store, yes, you can say header equal to true. Header equal to true. If you don't want it, just make it header equal to false. Right? While saving also, you have options to store index numbers and column names. Obviously, we need column names, right? Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. We say header equal to true, right? So that is what. Even if I execute, it will not show anything here, right? So it will. You have to go back to that folder and check it. If I execute this, it will store in the same folder, right? Fine. Let me execute this and okay. Let's go back to this folder name and check the timestamp. Titanic train. You see that 1710, right? 21. We have just created 1305. Right? Timestamp is same, the current timestamp. So that way you will be able to store your file. Now, suppose say that instead of a CSV file, I have an Excel file. I have Excel file. Yes, we can read the Excel file. Only difference is instead of read underscore CSV, I am going to write Excel. I'm going to write Excel. And the path, right? So, but when you are reading it Excel, so obviously you will have multiple sheets, right? Sheet 1, sheet 2, or things like that. So if your data is in different sheet, so you can mention that sheet name. The data is in sheet 2. So let's execute this. This is basically what the data. And make sure that your file name should end with XLSX or any Excel file extension, right? Some will have different, old versions will have different. So yes, irrespective of that, you just need to copy that. This cannot have a CSV. So because you are using Excel, read underscore Excel. So here this data is available in sheet 2. Do we have any data in sheet 1? Let's check. Sheet 1. Run it. Yes, we have only simple one line I have there. This is for testing. So based on the sheet name, so your data will be retrieved. So you need to make sure that which sheet data you wanted to retrieve here, right? That is the idea. So this way you will be able to import or read the data from different files, or in this case, Excel files and CSV files. We will discuss other file formats, other sources. Okay, now let's look into some HTML files here. Let me take this whole link. Okay, so give me a second. So this is basically basketball related data, right? So I'm not sure how many of you follow NBA. So yeah, just like it is IPL, in cricket we have IPL, and in basketball it is like a NBA, right? So this is basically one of the link .html. So here we have some data here, the player name and position and things like that. There are many columns. Let's not worry about what are all they. All right. So this is some of the data we have, and if I want to extract this data, right? So how do I extract this kind of a data? So I'm going to extract data from there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep this URL in one variable. So when I have a data in this .html, so I'm going to read. Same concept again, except instead of a CSV or Excel, I'm going to say read underscore HTML. HTML. So then I will pass this URL. And whenever you see HTML files, so it is not always mandatory that you will be able to access it. Some will be restricted, some will need a copyrights, right? So you cannot simply go ahead and access all this. So there are some restrictions that you need to understand. Since we know this, we can do this accessing and things like on this data set, on this URL. So we are doing it, all right? So yes, I'm going to read that HTML file. Now, let it read. So here, I'm using this basketball data. And here I'm giving a 0, maybe you're wondering. So this is basically the index at which our all data are located. So this table you see, right? This table is at the whole table basically. right? So it's too big. So this is at the index position 0. This is at index position 0. We don't see it. Again, I said that we need a lot of ideas behind this. That is a part of a web scraping and all. So we will not get into that. So yeah, the 0th index position, all your data, this table data is lying. Right? So that's why I am using 0 here. So how do I know that 0, 1, 2, 3? Yes, that's again web scraping. In the web scraping, you have a different techniques to fetch the data. Right? You have to import different modules, beautiful soup, import requests. There are many things will comes into picture. So I have fetched this URL data, and in this index position, I have the tables. In that table, I have all these data. Right? So first guy is Quincy AC. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. So you can see that Quincy AC. And Jordan Adams, the second guy. Jordan Adams is the second guy. Similarly, they're different statistics. Right? So that's how you will be able to check. And as usual, how many rows we have? Using dot shape method. Dot shape will give the rows and columns. So already we know here 30 columns are there. Total number of rows are 675. And what are all the column names? Here we see only a few column names because some of them are hidden because of the size here. If you still want to see the number of columns, as we discussed, dot columns. And if you want to fetch only the particular columns, why you want to see all these details? Maybe you are not interested. I don't understand what is AST. I don't understand what is the TM. I understand only player name. I want to know his age. I want to know his position. I want to know his points. Right? Because you may not be understanding some of the columns. In that case, why you want to print all this data set? The whole data set is basically no use for you. So in that case, yes, you can select only the particular column name. And this applies to all the data sets. Don't think that we are using this kind of a logic when we are accessing a .html file. That's wrong. So whatever the operations we are going to do, like methods and all, that applies to all kinds of data frames, irrespective of the data set. Right? So here, don't worry about what is this data set. Just assume that this is some data frame. In this data frame, I want two square brackets, right? In the main square bracket, you are passing the list of the column names. In the main square bracket, you are passing the list of column names which you want to see. RK, player, DRP, right? So you can select particular columns and print only those column data. So you can add many more columns here, whichever columns you want to see. It is not necessary that you have to print the entire data set. Right? So this is a whole data set. And sometimes what happens every time you don't want to write dot head, right? So what we can do, we can set this default number of rows you want to print. It is not important. It's not at all important. If you want to set every time you want to see only 2 rows, you can set this option. Right? So here one of the code is pandas.options.display.maximum rows equal to 2. If you use this, so every time you print, every time you execute the data frame, you will be able to see only 2 rows. So now what happened here? I am running it. It is showing total 10 records. Top 5, bottom 5. Now after executing this line, right? I just executed this. I set maximum rows to displays only 2. Now I'm going to give the same code. You can see here, I did not mention any head or a tail or a sample. The same thing I'm doing it here after executing this particular line. Now, if I execute, you will see only 2 rows, 1 and 2, right? So anyway, it is not important. This is just for your information. Usually we use, most of the time we use a head method, right? So yeah, this is just for information. If you are too lazy to write dot head, some will use this. I never used it. So some seen in my office, some are very lazy to write head and a tail. So what they do, they will execute this line very first as soon as they import the pandas, so that they can just use the data frame, right? That happens. Some people use it. I have never used it, but this is for your information. Okay, that's about how to access .html file.